Hello YouTube, it's Shadow Hero 90, welcoming you to my show, Sexism in Movies and TV, where I expose and rip apart the gynocentric and misandric trash on mostly Western TV. For the most part, the films and shows that are really guilty of bashing men and doing nothing else, in fact, these franchises almost take pride in it, well, they mostly come from either the United States or Canada. The positive male role models on Japanese TV are out in full display, unlike here in the United States, where most of them are either hidden away or covered up, never appear on screen, or are just 100% cucked to make the female Mary Sue characters look good by comparison. Which, for the record, if you have to make a male character look bad to make the Mary Sue female character look good, then she isn't a good character at all. Now, there are tons of reasons as to why I do this show. One of which is, well, it's kind of easy to assume the fact that shows and movies like the ones I attack in this series are responsible for the fact that both men and young boys in this day and age have such low self-esteem. And a newer reason that I mentioned is the fact that no good male role models are on TV anymore. And in movies, they basically get cucked to make the girl characters look good, which ties into the whole young men and boys have such low self-esteem issue that I brought up. Yes, because they are horrible characters. The men have to be made to look weak and or dumb to make these characters look good. And that's something I wanted to, bring up. And that's the fact that these girl power characters are all terrible role models. Well, on the other hand, all of the female characters who could be seen as good role models for girls are usually, limited to anime for the most part. Most fictional characters that girls see on TV that they would want to emulate are basically horrible characters. Not saying they're horribly written, I'm just saying they're horrible people. And outside of some of these characters, a lot of little girls want to grow up to become pop stars, and that is an occupation that requires whoever's doing the job to dress like a prostitute. And having given you reasons as to why I do this show, which amounts to the fact that feminist Hollywood will hurt everyone, the episode will now begin. Hello YouTube, it's Shadow Hero 90, and in this episode of Sexism in Movies and TV, I'm once again going to be going after animaniacs. In this episode, I want to discuss some things that I didn't really mention when I reviewed Animaniacs 2021 Season 1, aka Animaniacs Season 5, and at least one new episode from the 2 seasons that came after that in 2021 and 2022. Okay, there's only one Warner segment that I want to bring up, and that's Manny Manspreader. I'm just going to get the elephant right out of the room on this one. Manspreading isn't real. It's just something that feminists made up to vilify men. And in all fairness, watching a kids show use it to promote these deranged left-wing agendas is sick. The episode itself is built on a forced and stupid premise. It takes place in a movie theater, a location that doesn't exactly have king-sized seats. And yeah, this guy is not in the wrong, but the episode thinks that it is. They're trying to force the manspreading ideology onto kids. Here's the thing. Manspreading isn't real. You see, men, when we sit down, the best way to put it is, we sometimes have to sit a certain way to protect a very sensitive part of our bodies. And these overweight land whales on social media trying to villainize us for it is fucked up. It's basically just hate-mongering. And to be blunt, I'm just going to say this, I'm just gonna say it. Manspreading, the concept, would be, is absurd, but it would be just as absurd as, say, having regulations in certain places that would require women to wear harnesses on their upper body, taking two very sensitive parts of their bodies, and these harnesses would tie them together like some kind of twisted torture device. To the extent that if they accidentally bumped into someone, or someone accidentally bumped into them, let's just say those certain sensitive body parts would explode. Imagine, if you will, a group of people on the internet, trying to force this onto women and vilifying them when they say no. Yeah, I would see feminists screaming like a bunch of goddamn banshees if that were the case. But since it's men, it's okay. And there's no way a cartoon, especially one aimed at kids, would be allowed to talk about this ideology in a positive light without getting cancelled. The Pinky and the Brain segment that I want to talk about from Season 1 is the Mousechurian Candidate, which was Julia's introduction. The big problem with this episode, and Brain in this revival as a whole, was stated by lovely Lady V in her video, The Many Mistakes of Animaniacs 2020. And what she said is that in Animaniacs 2020, Brain's morals are completely unchecked. She also said that in the original, Brain did have standards and lines that he would never cross. Now here's the thing. Julia is meant to be the new Snowball, Pinky and the Brain's arch enemy. But the problem with this concept is that, there was already a Snowball. Pinky and the Brain already had a villain. They had an arch enemy. Yes, I know they kind of killed him off in the original run, but I mean, that could easily be retconned. I mean, yeah, in a revival, we could find out that, no, Snowball didn't die. What Pinky and the Brain saw die was just a clone, or an android, or Snowball actually survived, and in the later seasons, when he returns, he'd come back as a cyborg. I mean, come on, the design for that could be really cool. There are three ways it could go. One, have Snowball return and make him half hamster, half robot. Have him return and have him mostly cybernetic, or just have him come back as a brain in a robotic body. Or if you want to go, I just came up with this, have him implant his brain into the body of one of the scientists at Acme Labs. That would make for a really interesting story and a very good hero-villain fight. But they didn't do that. Instead, they introduced Julia. And the problem with her character is this. She should have been a villain from the start. Here's the thing, and this really makes Brain look like an asshole. Julia is basically a decent person until Brain decides he's gonna mind control her, because originally she was nothing more than a pawn in his latest scheme for world domination. And, yeah, she's basically driven insane after, well, Brain tries to brainwash her into doing his bidding. She tries to fight back. Brain cranks the mind control device up to maximum power, and it basically fries Julia's brain, sending her from this to this, eventually this. Yeah, Julia wasn't crazy before any of this. Brain was actually the one who drove her insane. I mean, this really does make him out to be an asshole, and unless they intended Brain to definitely be a villain, even though in the season finale they give him a sympathetic backstory, they kind of butchered the execution, especially on the concept of his new arch-enemy. Before I knew that the people behind this revival hated the show, I actually thought that they wanted to go with a Batman female Joker type dynamic, where the main character now has an arch-enemy who exists because of him, in an ironic sense. Had she been a villain from the start, Brain would look like less of an asshole. Because here's the thing, Snowball was a villain in his first appearance. Brain even tells Pinky about his falling out with Snowball and how evil he is. In this case, Julia is, well, like Lady V said, a victim of mental abuse. And yeah, but they don't really do anything with it. With that concept. I mean, when I saw it, at first I thought in the next season she's gonna bring him down and it's gonna be kind of a feminist take on the irony of a villain being beaten by a hero that he accidentally created. But in all fairness, this whole thing would have been better if Julia had been this deranged wacko from day one. But they were too stupid to go with that. Now, don't get me wrong, Julia is a good character, and she is fun to watch, but she should have been this from the get-go. She wasn't always that way. In fact, this is the scene that made Julia what she is. And in all fairness, they should not have put this in the show. This should not have been her origin. Because, like I said before, it basically makes Brain an asshole. The episode All's Fair and Love Endure, where Brain creates a virtual reality simulator where he's spending time with a virtual Julia in a fake marriage, does actually make this confusing, because the character they wanted to say is an asshole suddenly has feelings for the woman he drove insane. And then the virtual one constructs a robot body, tries to kill him, and fails. But in doing research for this episode, I came across something that could easily be in bad taste. And that's the fact that the character of Julia is played by comedian Maria Bamford, who basically kinda built her career off of making jokes about mental illness. I'm just saying, maybe it wasn't the best idea to cast a woman who built her career off of cracking jokes about mental health as this deranged lunatic who wants to take over the world. Okay, and the Warner segment that I'd like to talk about is their Christmas special, where Yakko says that they and or their show have become a lot nicer since they got rid of Hello Nurse and Minerva Mink. And the truth is, this is an episode that is insanely hypocritical. On these grounds, the people behind Animaniacs 2020 say that characters like Hello Nurse and Minerva Mink are completely over-sexualized, but this guy is okay. I'm just gonna say it. I only saw one episode with this oversized, brain-dead, muscle-bound oaf in it, and he was wearing a Speedo throughout the entire thing. I'm gonna say this plain and simple. I know the people who made this show hated its original run. But I'm also going to say they're complete hypocrites, as the muscle-bound oaf is okay, but these two characters aren't. I mean, for crying out loud. This guy's first appearance, he was basically wearing nothing but a Speedo, but these two are fully clothed. Their dresses might be a little short, but they're not walking around in fucking bikinis. The people behind this fucked up revival strike me as the type of people who would side with fourth wave feminism. The type of people who would want girls to grow up to be completely ashamed of how they look when they've grown up, and feel guilty if they turn out attractive, should they have any friends who end up looking like a beached land whale. And hold the double standard that Muscles Magoo here is actually okay, and there's nothing wrong with him. Yes, better for the schools to indoctrinate your daughters into their way of thinking. It's kind of funny when you think about it. These clowns would go on and on about how progressive they are, and how they're taking a pro-feminist stance, while at the same time writing out, most of the main characters from the original who were girls, and the one who's still there, they basically turn into a Karen. And now I'm going to end this review by saying, 1. These people are the type with double standards who think attractive women are bad, but are A-okay with some muscle-bound oaf walking around in what amounts to a bikini bottom. And 2, I actually hear people on this very platform say that feminism has a very horrid opinion of women, because they're actually the ones shaming women who are attractive. And Animaniacs 2020, the people who wrote this fall into that category. Whether they be feminist, white knight, or incel, they fall into that category. And one more thing before this review is officially over. Aren't the people who wrote the line that their show became nice when they removed these two characters the type of people who say that slut-shaming is wrong? Well, to an extent with this character here, they're the ones who are slut-shaming. They're trying to brainwash kids into their political ideology, which is really low and despicable. And with that said, this review is officially over.